Okay, so this video is one I tried recording before, like a few weeks ago, but I wasn't happy with the base design that I had going. And I'm going to be talking about my personal rework of the favorite Foe feature from Tasha's, which, basically kind of building on the concept of Hunter's Mark, but taking it farther than just you get to do extra damage, making it a lot more interactive, more choices you can make, and just kind of making it less of, or at least attempting, I don't know if I succeeded or not, just make it less of just a combat thing, like giving it a little bit more use and, other things. So, as we know, the way the way Favorite Foe works in Tasha's, you've got proficiency bonus times per day, and it lasts a minute when you use it. When you hit a creature, you can designate it your favorite foe, and then, once per turn, you can add a d4 to the damage you do to it. This effect takes concentration. It's technically okay. It's an extra thing you can do. Like, most players, their damage is going to come from, like, crossbow expert anyway, or sharpshooter. Marshals, that's, the way they work in 5e, but, so, a lot of people don't like it, but it's, technically fine because it doesn't, it's its own extra resource. It doesn't, the only thing it competes for is your concentration. And in the scope of an official adventuring day with 8 combats, you can't use your spells for every single friggin' combat. You're gonna run out of spells. So having this just an extra 1d4 damage per turn is okay. It's not technically bad. It's not a detriment, but it's overall a really boring feature and a really it's very underwhelming and it's really boring. So for a while, what we were doing in the Erlmeyer campaign where I'm playing a ranger, we basically made it so it's a hybrid of this feature and Hunter's Mark, where it's basically this feature. When you hit them, you can designate your favorite foe, but we remove the concentration requirement and the once per turn requirement. So it does damage like Hunter's Mark, but you don't need to use your bonus action and you can move it, which ended up being pretty strong as just an extra feature, but it's just some extra damage and you don't really get any other features from it. So it's it was kind of boring and funneling, and there's no real choices to be made. So let's go over my rework of this feature. So, and I have it loaded up here, figured out how to do split screen on this phone. So the way I changed it is, initially, when you get it at level, is it level 1? I think it's level 1 you get this feature. Whatever. Yeah, I think it's level 1, but you can mark it as your favorite foe. It doesn't take concentration, but once per turn. Oh, also, instead of lasting a minute or being able to move it, it just lasts a number of hours equal to your ranger level, which allows it to be functional outside of combat. And this mostly allows you to this supports the idea of you hit something, say you're a hunter and you hit a deer with an arrow. Well, now you can mark it because you hit it, and now you can track it easier, as I'm about to go over. So it functions the same way as once per turn. You can add a d4 to a roll you make, but Instead, you can add it to the damage you do. You could also add it to attack rolls. So it's a built-in kind of personal bless against one target, which is strong, but you've got relatively limited uses of this feature. So this is kind of like the boss or elite enemy you want to take down. That kind of feature, that's what this is. So you can add a d4 to your attack or damage, and only one or the other, because you can only add this once per turn. But you can also add it to an ability check you make. So it's designed to be kind of versatile. And also you can add this whenever you make an attack roll. You can add it after you see the roll. So once you have some better information about like the monster's AC, like whether your DM announces it or you have to figure it out, you can figure out whether you want to add it to the attack roll, or if, okay, no, that'll hit, so I'm going to add it to the damage instead. So basically it lets you hit more frequently or add more damage, which both are adding more damage. But like really this allows I feel this allows Rangers to be the kind of the more accurate attacking class. Like they just hit more often on their favorite foe. They just have an easier time attacking the particular target they're focusing down. You know, I like that fantasy. But you can also add it to an ability check you make. And inside of combat, that doesn't matter as much. You know, you can add it to like grapple checks, and that's kind of a big thing. You can add it to either an athletic check you make to grab something and pin it down, or if something grabs you, you have an easier time getting away, which I think is also pretty on brand. But then at level 6, it scales up to a d6, which is normal for the feature. But then you also gain a new way to use this feature. When the favorite foe attacks you or forces you to make a saving throw, you can basically add the favorite foe die, which is now a d6. You can add it to the saving throw you make if it forces you to make a saving throw, or you can add it to your armor class. And this is pretty strong, but it's a die and not a flat number. So, you know, you might not always want to use it. Like maybe you have something else to use with your reaction. Like say maybe you have absorb elements. And let's say the DC, you know, you're fighting a dragon and you have absorb elements, and this uses your reaction and you have spell slots left. So this dragon uses its breath effect and the DC is like 16. And you fail it and you roll a 12 total. Well, you could use absorb elements to guarantee having that damage, or you could use your reaction to roll that d6. And if you roll a 4 or higher, which you have a reasonable chance to do on a d6, then you could succeed and have the damage. Now, you can guarantee, in this example, you can guarantee having that damage with absorb elements, or you can guarantee, or you could not guarantee, with rolling the die. And so the spell is guaranteed, but it uses a spell slot. And the rolling the favorite foe die is not guaranteed, but it's effectively free use because you already have this feature up. But I've also thought about allowing this to not use your reaction, and it's just, you can, whenever you're subjected to an effect like this, it's just once per turn. So this supports a kind of like anti-boss kind of play style, where, you know, the boss, it makes the ranger a less attractive target, especially if it doesn't use their reaction, because, like, let's say the boss has ranged attacks as legendary actions. Well, if this doesn't use the ranger's reaction, then they can effectively apply this to every attack that the boss makes as a legendary action. gaining this D6 to their armor class every time, or to every saving throw they have to make. So that's a potentially really strong defensive feature, and I'm not sure if it should use your reaction or not, because you've already spent this feature, which at this point you only have 3 of per day, which is probably enough to get you through a lot of stuff. And as long as you have like 1 for the big boss, you're fine. But that's a factor. Like, you don't have a whole lot of uses of this feature, and that's the other thing. You would not be able to move this feature after your favorite foe dies. It's just over. So, but you would know that your favorite foe died, so that's the thing. If you're tracking it. Which, actually, I didn't speak on that first part, like making the ability checks, like in combat. It's grapple checks, but outside of combat, it's survival checks to track it, perception checks to find it, to look at it, that kind of thing. So it kind of supports, it's similar to Hunter's Mark, where you just get advantage, but it's not as strong as that, because it's just an extra D6, which is still good, but, And technically, you could argue that it might be stronger because advantage is on average +5, and then a D6 is on average 3.5. So, yeah, not semantics. Details. Anyway. So, yeah, the question is whether, like, this reaction to improve your armor class or add it to your saving throws, would it need to use your reaction? Would that be too limiting? I'm leaning towards not using your reaction, but then in that case, you could do absorb elements and add this against this breath effect, and the ranger could avoid a lot of damage, which I think is actually a pretty flavorful way of helping that class's survivability. Because now in the Erlmeyer game, we're using a homebrew spell that functions like absorb elements, but for physical damage, and it's a higher level spell. So that's strong. But without that, this ranger would have a lot less resilience. It would take a lot more damage. So, that's a factor. But either way, like, this also means, like, if your favorite foe is attacking you on your turn, or on their turn, without, like, a single shot legendary action, and they have multi-attack, well, you're still only applying it to 1 roll per turn. So this also makes the ranger, one, less attractive, both at the same time a less attractive target for attacks, and on the boss's turn, kind of more attractive, because if you're gonna attack the ranger, you got to do it with a bunch of attacks on the same turn. So, there's some nuance there, which I think is interesting. And then also at this level, you can apply it. You can apply your bonus twice per turn, or twice on your turn, I should say, which would negate everything I just said. And that never changes. On your turn, it also scales up again an additional time to 3 times per turn. But on other characters' turn, or on other creatures' turn, it's only ever once per turn. So there's that. So you can apply it twice on your turn. So you could say apply it to a single attack roll that you think is low, and then if it hits, you could either save the second die for your second attack, or if it, and then even if you do save it and it hits anyway, well, then you can just apply it to damage. So, or if you say, your first attack hits, I'm gonna save it. Okay. Your second attack hits. Okay. I'll add it to damage. But theoretically, if you do save it both times, while you can apply it twice per turn, I don't think I actually wrote it down, but you should only be able to apply it once to a single roll. So if you have 2 die left on your turn, you can't apply both of them to an attack roll. I should add that language in. But then at level 9, You can apply this bonus up to 3 times on your turn, which I think is maybe rather soon. And in addition, whenever you hit your favorite foe with an attack roll, it takes extra damage of that damage type equal to your wisdom mod. So you can just start to add your wisdom mod as guaranteed, as a small amount of guaranteed flat damage to your what do you call it? To your damage. To your damage rolls. Which isn't nothing, but yeah. Oh, homeowners are here. Yeah, it's not nothing, but it's not a huge amount. I'm here, but I'm gonna finish recording this video. Yeah. So, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so you can add it up to 3 times on your turn, which allows you to, say, spend it on like your first turn. You can add it to damage and stuff, but that also makes it so if you only have 2 attacks and you hit both of them, then you can't apply it to all of your, you can't convert it all to damage, but it's a free resource and blah, blah, blah. Or it's an already used resource. Yeah, because you've already spent the actual resource to initiate the effect. And then finally at level 14, it scales up to a D8, and in addition, when this favorite foe die is applied as damage, you double it. You roll the die twice. So, and at level 14, an extra D8 of damage isn't a huge amount, but 2d8 kind of is, and you can apply it to multiple attacks per turn. So, and whenever you're making opportunity attacks, you can also apply it to that, and those are factors. Yeah, I'm definitely leaning towards when it's not on your turn, it would be more what do you call it? Yeah, it wouldn't use reactions. So the whole idea of this feature is to give the ranger kind of something interesting, something that supports that idea of a more accurate combatant that picks their moments and is also more about like taking down single targets, that kind of thing. So, there's some variance there. I will post a link to this or a version of this either in the description for this video. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on this rework. I might tweak it a little bit. Maybe it's too strong in some cases, but yeah.